Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our news update for the week ending April the 15th. We're recording this on Monday the 18th. We definitely hope that everybody had a good Easter, celebrating that very important holiday for us, and got to see some family. Um, Most importantly, hope that you got to eat some good food. That's normally a big deal for us, as we normally eat pretty good on Easter. That's a holiday that's comparable like Thanksgiving whenever we break out the good groceries. So hopefully everybody got to enjoy that and spend a little time with family. We've got a lot to talk about today, so we're going to let Vince lead us off and give us an update for the central and southwest part of the state.
Thank you, Jason. And yeah, it was good to be spend time with family and friends over the extended weekend and give graces to the good one. And we've been graced with good weather in the central part of the state. I'm sure you and Leo give us an update for the northern sector of the state, but we've been getting some rains here. We had a 2.5 inch rain, up to 4 inches in areas mid last week. So our winter planted pastures of ryegrass and natural stands of clovers are flourishing at this time, and cattle are starting to grease up and really look good coming off of a dry, what we consider a dry winter. And the drought monitor clearly depicts that we were in extreme drought from most of the winter. From October up until recently. So, with that being said, pastures are greening. A lot of activity. Wanting to, with some reservation, wanting to get some things started on some hay fields, as far as herbicide applications, making some fertilizer applications as well. But people are just a little bit apprehensive, and the question continues to remain: where can we save some money on making applications of fertilizer this year? And in all honesty, if you haven't soil tested and your pH is off, you need to get that in order. I was probably going to be the biggest bang for your buck, but it may be a double-edged sword because you can't do without fertilizer. But uh, you may need to get some lime out there to get the biggest bang for your buck on fertilizer this year moving forward, if you're going to cut those applications any. So that's the thing we've been kind of promoting as a production practice. If you hadn't been keeping up with that pH and keeping that lime where you need it to have the levels that we need to be productive, it's time to get that in order. um, Lime is running, applied, about 55 to $65 a ton depending on freight in our area. So I've heard of people that have their own means of freight picking it up at the port for around $30 a ton, who have lime carts, that they can put it out themselves. So that may be a cost saving measure there. If you have a cheaper way of freighting it to the farm, there is a depot at Lettsworth and in Alexandria on the Red River where we can access lime quarries there or quantities. So with that being said, there's a lot of spring working going on spring-born calves. Calf market has kind of slipped off. Continued with these high prices of corn, and the threat of corn being used. The ethanol percentage being increased in our gasoline supply. So it still remains a huge question of we just can't. It's the root of all evils. It's like the corn prices are going up, and yes, it directly correlates with the cattle prices. There's no question, but it's kind of an accelerated opposite directions at this point to some degree. And it's repairs and diesel cost and fertilizer cost. It continues to be unsaid. I just feel like we're gonna have some of these smaller herds slip away from us and go to market where these killing cows are still, it's kind of a lucrative situation there if this cow's got some age on them, but have some finish and some quality. These cattle that are going to be higher yielding are going to force some of these smaller producers out of the picture. I have a feeling moving forward. So, with that being said, we've had a number of special sales in the area, which certainly does not reflect what the calf market is doing. Still people are still paying for these good tiger stripe and F1 pairs in central and south Louisiana I mean, we've seen them sell for $3,400 a pair. I mean, that's hardly justifiable when you look at the cost of the other inputs and the cost of repairs and what we have circulating around us. So it's kind of unnerving to know where we're moving and where we're going, but it's sure been a challenge. In our crop area, just a brief on that, because we in a pretty diversified area of the state. We have a lot of corn, soybeans, and grain sorghum. We've pretty much gotten all those crops planted. We've got a good rain on those last week with good crop emergence. Our crawfish sector is up and down with these cold fronts coming through it. We're going to be 50 degrees tonight or in maybe at the upper 40s. That's no good for our crawfish farmers, but it's been a swing on that deal. That weather, we've been getting one weather event coming through each week, and it's the threat of rain and severe storms, and we've been lucky. We haven't had any, but we've been getting some beneficial rains out of it. So to wrap up, this week on Thursday, we're going to have our Dean Lee Beef and Forage Field Day on the 21st, Thursday the 21st. Registration will begin at 2 p.m. We have several field tours and stops to make, and we'll wrap up with an indoor meal, a sponsored meal. We'll have some vendors out there with some equipment and some things for producers to look at and hopefully make some good decisions moving forward with this industry. And that's about all I have at this point, Jason.
Vince, I got one quick question for you. Do y'all have have y'all got enough planning reports out there yet to give you a grasp on what your decrease in corn acreage and increase in soybean acreage looks like this year?
Well, we haven't had any reports yet, Jason, but we're so close in proximity to Baton Rouge, to the major port system. Freight is not a huge where they got to play the basis, whether it be a plus or minus basis. They're still, corn. The intended acres, I think, are going to be planted for what we have seen in the past at $7 corn. I think they can make a reasonable profit margin of profit there because freight is not a big differential for them, either going to Lettsworth or to Baton Rouge to the major ports. So it's freight is not a big deal here locally, but soybeans, I think we'll see some increase in soybean acres. So there'll probably be a little bit of a swing in some rice acres going to soybeans. Corn acres will be about the same. We just in my general area, we have such a big swing on sugarcane acres that's affected most of these other grain crops. So I don't think we'll see a huge swing in acres at this point. I think that may be in the Midwest more than here.
Appreciate it. I know you're pretty big soybean country. I didn't know if y'all were going to see a little bit of uptick, just a shift because of fertilizer. Some of those guys moving from away from corn and over towards soybeans.
That is so that there is, that is going to have a factor. But soybean seed has been a real challenge to get. Any big swings in soybean acres, it's hard to get seed on. So they pretty much try to forecast that as best they can in the fall after harvest. And I don't think we'll have a huge swing to soybean acres, but there will be some.
Okay, appreciate those comments. Lee, I'm going to turn it over to you for an update out of the northwest part of the state.
Well, thank you, Jason. Glad to be with y'all today. Just want to give a disclaimer. I'm on I-20 over in Bossier, Caddo Parish, and if you've ever driven this stretch of road, it's the nearest thing to a roller coaster you can get legally. You'll be jumping all over the place, so I hope it won't affect what I've got to say. I'm challenged enough when it comes to speaking what's on my mind sometimes without other factors coming into play. On the weather front, as far as what we've been facing in the northwest part of the state, we've been getting plenty of moisture too. Unfortunately, it's come in the form of storm systems. It's been at least once a week, if not two a week, for the last 2 or 3 weeks, I guess. Now it all starts running together a little bit. I saw something put out by the National Weather Service out of Shreveport. Our last event, which was around April the 12th and 13th, generated 7 or 9 tornadoes across their area, which is mainly Jason and my territories, northwest, northeast Louisiana, but a little bit into the central region too. Not too bad, but so we don't like that. And you know, aside from the tornadoes, our last straight line wind damage too, which can mirror some of that tornado damage, and it all equates to the same thing. That's trees on fences, trees on barns, on houses. Unfortunately, talked to a couple of producers that have had some moderate damage. One tree on a barn, another one on a shop, but no houses lost, thankfully, from that, and of course, no lives lost or injuries, so to speak. Our last system, they were really touting some significant hail threat, and that can really be detrimental to those cattle out there grazing. Of course, the structural damage with that. Thankfully, we avoided most of that. But with the moisture is welcome. The winter forages look fantastic. Though I will say that I was looking at some fields at the Hill Farm Research Station this morning, and they were planted in cereal rye and ryegrass, and the cereal rye has fully seeded out, fully headed out, and so we know that we're kind of on the short rows with it, and we're still getting good grazing out of the ryegrass, but those cereals have kind of reaching their peak and maybe a little past their peak, so to speak, as far as grazing from them. Got a couple of producers I've talked to that bale a lot of baleage that have gotten started. They sneaked in a little bit in between storm systems on some drier hay fields that they've been able to sneak in and get that ryegrass off of there. A lot of it's volunteer ryegrass, and they know their time's limited as far as being able to put up a quality product out of that. But as far as dry haying, there's nobody's baled any dry hay as to date. I expect that will probably change in the next week or so. I noticed we've got some highs in the high 70s, 80s, and that will probably bring out the folks that want to dry bale that hay. They'll probably give it a shot. They may have success, they may not. You bale a lot of hay in this country, and if you bale a lot of ryegrass and dry bale it is a challenge to say the least. But I know some is going on right now. Probably by the next time we visit, it'll be in swing for sure. Cattle look really good for this time of year. Still have some people that are kind of getting that spring cattle working accomplished. A lot of times those folks would ideally have it done by the 1st of April, but people are running just a little bit behind this time of year. And I'll echo what Vince said. We've been seeing some replacement cow sales that are just out of this world. And there is a lot of optimism in the cattle market if you base it solely on what people are giving on these replacement type cows, these pair cows, so on and so forth, that people are giving good money for them. And they're good cattle now. I'll say that. They're good cattle. And, you know, Vince popped off, I think, 3,000, 3,400 on some tiger stripe pairs. Heard some reports of some kind of crossbred Brangus type pairs, young cows, the type and kind, if you know what I mean, getting there to 2,700 or so in our part of the world, and that's getting pretty salty based off what these calves are bringing. So we're seeing a lot of people continuing to shuck those high dollar killing cows and killing. I think that may be kind of playing a part in what these replacement cow prices are doing. Whenever these folks are shucking these older cows and getting such a big payout on them, they can turn around and throw some money with them and get some good cattle, and they got more money to play with, so to speak. Continue, yearling sales continue. I got off the phone with a producer not long before we started recording this that is pulling the trigger on a load of cattle going to Oklahoma. Next week he's going to roll the dice and take a chance on them. And these are bigger yearling type cattle that've been on ryegrass. And finally, Jason, I'm going to wrap up with this. Ran into a cattle and hay producer and chicken producer at a gas station the other day, and we got to talking about the state of things and the cost of inputs. And he was particularly talking about the cost of hay and making hay. And as we talked about it, I could tell his shoulders started shrinking a little bit, and he started out smiling, and it turned into a frown. And he said, man, I've already committed several hundred rolls on a first cutting deal to a fella, and he told me for today, for this day and time, he said, I believe I'm going to lose money on that. And so I'm not naming any names, not going to use a price, of course, on it, but I will tell you this as a cautionary tale. If you're a hay grower, hay seller, before you price this hay, study your lesson. Make sure that you've got all these inputs factored in right before you cut any deals, any large deals on any hay this upcoming year. If you buy your hay, and I know there's some folks that listen to us probably buy their hay, highly suggest that you go on and get it spoke for, get it kind of locked up there, and don't be surprised whenever your cost of hay goes up, because it's not so much your hay growers trying to get rich off of you, they're trying to cover their expenses. So I said I would wrap up with that. Got one other thing. Vince gave us all the info about the Central Region Beef and Forage Field Day coming up this week. Next week on April 28th, we have our Northwest Region Beef and Forage Field Day. It's going to be at the Red River Research Station there in Bossier City. We get kicked off around 8 o'clock, 8:30 is when registration opens. Program begins at 9. We're going to be talking about some issues related to high input costs, and we are going to feed a good meal for that for lunch. So if you're interested in that, get in touch with me. I'll provide more information. That's it, Jason.
All right. Thank you, Lee. And you be safe on the roads. I know where he's headed. He's got Master Cattleman class tonight, as well as I over in West Monroe. So we got off of here. I'll be hitting the road as well. He's got a little bit further to go than I do this evening. So Lee, be safe on the roads. We did have a good bit of wind damage over towards the east side of the state. National Weather Service came out saying that we did have some strong straight line winds, 60 plus mile an hour straight line winds, along with an EF1 tornado that affected parts of Lincoln, Union, and Ouachita. Tracked all the way up into Morehouse and West Carroll parishes. Definitely want to give our thoughts and prayers to one of our co-workers, Bruce Garner, who lost their home, their family home, and during that storm. And we definitely want to lift him up in our thoughts and prayers as they work towards trying to get rebuilt. We received anywhere from 2 inches of rain to 3.5 inches of rain through that system. So like Lee said, we have definitely been getting the moisture on the east side of the state as well, and it's very welcome moisture. But I guess I just wish that some of these systems would just bring us a little bit of rain and not all of the bad storms that go along with it. But hey, at the end of the day, it's April and May, and we are very accustomed to those type systems that pass through here, and it's whenever we get these big cold fronts that push down. And you heard Vince allude to the fact that and we get these huge weather temperature fluctuations this time of year, dropping down in the 40s and 50s at night, and then we jump back up real quick, 70s and 80s during the day, and it just fuels some of these storms as they pass through. So we're accustomed to it. It doesn't make it any easier, doesn't make it any friendlier, but we are used to it. But we are definitely welcoming the moisture. If you look at the U.S. drought monitor down towards Vince's part of the world, you still got some places in the state that are in extreme drought. If you look at them on that map, they're still real bright red down there in parts of Evangeline, St. Landry, and as you move south and east from there. Whenever you look up in the north part of the state, over towards the west hand side, the Red River Delta, they're moving out of that drought. As you move over towards the Mississippi Delta, we're still having some drought implications, but we've moved out of that bright red like what we're seeing down in the south and southeast part of the state. As we start looking towards the markets, it's kind of ironic. So Vince mentioned the E15, the 15% ethanol blend, and Lee also mentioned some things about non-fed cattle slaughter and some of these kill cow numbers we've been seeing, and that was two of the things that I had in my notes to talk about. So the first one, if you're not aware, the Environmental Protection Agency will allow E15, so that's a 15% ethanol blend, to be sold during the summer this year. Normally, E15 is not used from June 1 to September 15th. That's just a period of time that typically we don't get that blend. But through an emergency waiver, the EPA is going to allow the sale of E15 this summer, June 1 to September 15th, at over 2,300 gas stations. So anytime we have an implied increase in demand on corn, we realize that, and some of this is implied, and we really don't know what the corn acreage is going to look like right now. So until we get a really good grasp on that, it's an implied increased demand on corn. So we've already got a volatile market situation. And you've got a lot of speculation out there, and I would assume that if we continue to see these corn prices go up the way we'll look in just a minute, consumers are likely to be paying more for beef, poultry, and pork, because those three commodities, those three animals, we depend heavily on corn to feed those animals during the feed out process. So that'll be really good news for ethanol companies and corn farmers, but pretty bad news for livestock feeders. Just based on the price of that commodity, the corn, that it's going to cost us. The other thing is federally inspected non-fed cattle slaughter in the first quarter of 2022. So we're seeing volumes that we hadn't seen since the mid-1980s. Just about every one of these news updates for the past 3 or 4 of them, you've heard us talking about cow slaughter and some of the prices that are out there. And these numbers that I'm going to give you are based on AMS, Agricultural Marketing Service, estimated and actual weekly slaughter data through the week ending April the 2nd. So that's the last data set that we've got to go on. So during this period, weekly federally inspected non-fed cattle slaughters. Whenever you hear anybody say non-fed cattle slaughter, that's beef cows, dairy cows, and bulls. So those numbers are showing that we're averaging more than 8% above year-ago levels. Specifically through the first 12 weeks, weekly federally inspected slaughter beef cows and bulls, this is taking dairy cows out of the mix, averaged 18 and 15% respectively above last year numbers. So we can suspect that these numbers are driven by drought, fuel prices, fertilizer prices, feed prices, and just general operating expenses that are costs that we're experiencing right now. All of those things that you've heard us talking about. So that just kind of puts it into perspective. You've heard us talking about a lot of that, so I figured it would be a good time for us to just show you what some of those numbers look like. And apparently these processors are filling their coffers with some of those really lean beef products that you can get out of some of these beef cows and dairy cows and bulls, particularly the grind, the ground meat product that is so popular in the world. They can use that very effectively and efficiently. The last thing is so everybody's familiar with the big gridlock that we had with the truckers up in Canada on the U.S.-Canadian border. We've got a similar situation going on right now on the U.S.-Mexican border. It's causing delays in trucking going across. And I just want you to be aware of that and the impacts that it could have on beef prices. So from February 2021 to December 2021, the U.S. imported an average of 57.6 million pounds and exported an average of 25.8 million pounds of beef every month. So that's an average monthly import and export with Mexico. If you look at imports, U.S. imports, it's Canada and Mexico is who we import the majority of our beef from, and then exporting. We're exporting mainly to some Asian countries, but Mexico is in the top 5 in terms of beef that we export out of the U.S. So anytime we have these bottlenecks at these major ports of entry that are major trade partners with us, then it's going to have implications. This week's slaughter at 634,000 head was 7,000 head under last year. So the period from now until Memorial Day will be a strong demand period for beef. And this is kind of setting the tone. We're really getting into the height of, or not the height, but the beginning of grilling season. Memorial Day being kind of the kickoff for grilling season on an anecdotal type calendar. A lot of folks start getting out and start grilling. They're looking for those high quality products that they can put onto the grill. So we suspect that we should start seeing some pretty strong demand, and we are starting to see that choice select spread out a little bit. So looking at that, the choice cutout posted modest gains for the 5th consecutive week, closing the week at $272.48 a hundred. So that was up $1.98 compared with the last week. The choice select spread is $12.69, so that's up $3.63 from the previous week, and is starting to track with the 2016-20 average. So like I said, we should expect to start seeing that spread out a little bit. A lot of the speculations that you read is we're going to see some pretty hefty choice select spreads this summer, just strictly based on the high demand for beef products right now. As reported in the National Weekly Direct Slaughter Cattle Negotiated Purchasers Report, they had a confirmed 97,066 head for the week. In that report, reported the week in the Southern Plains, live purchases traded $1 higher at $1.39. In Nebraska, for the week, live purchases traded $2 higher from $1.40 to $1.42, with a few up to $1.44. In the Western Corn Belt, for the week, live purchases traded $2 to $3 higher from $1.42 to $1.43, with a few up to as high as $1.45. In Colorado, for the week, live purchases traded $2 to $4 higher from $1.40 to $1.42. So on that same class of cattle, our live cattle, futures market settlements in the front months ended the week with June down 45 cents at 136.42, August down 32 cents at 138.32, and October down 22 cents at 144.82. If we look at the week close, so the week closed on Thursday, trading closed on Thursday because of the Good Friday holiday. If you look at the week from Monday to Thursday, live cattle ended the week $1 to $2 higher when compared to the week open. 500 to 600 pound steers, medium and large 1s and 2s, sold between $179 and $185. So that was $3 higher to $4 lower when compared to the previous week. 700 to 800 pound feeder steers, medium and large 1s and 2s, sold between $140 and $149. That was $2 lower to steady when compared to the previous week. On that same class of cattle, futures market settlements in the front months ended the week with May trading down 17 cents at 161.77, August down 7 cents at 174.35, and September down 37 cents at 177.62. Those feeder cattle ended the week $1 to $3 higher when compared to the week open. Lean cull cows, that's those thin conditioned cows, ended the week down a penny at 72 cents a pound. Boning utility Those kill cows in moderate condition ended the week down 3 pennies at 80 cents. And breakers, that's those high condition cows, ended the week steady at 82 cents a pound. Looking at our feedstuff, soybean meal ended the week down $9.30 a ton at $491.40 a ton. Soybean hulls are down $5 at $155 a ton. Rice bran is steady at $190 a ton. Cottonseed meal steady at $355 a ton. Whole cottonseed, steady at $365 a ton. Corn gluten feed meal, that's the 60% product, is steady at $775 a ton. DDG steady at $313.33 a ton, and corn up 11 cents a bushel. So the corn that I report on is out of the county elevators in Arkansas. That's our nearest county elevators. They closed out the week at $8.01 a bushel. So we are seeing some current trades out there, current cash trades out there on some $8 bushel. Really good for our corn farmers. Again, not a very good story for our livestock feeders. And with that being said, Vince, you got anything else you need to add, bud?
No, I think we're good on this end.
All right. Well, we appreciate y'all joining us, and we will see y'all back in a couple of weeks. Thank y'all, and have a good day.